Hello, this is Anna Laura Brown, host of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where we talk about how to actually thrive and heal your autoimmune condition rather than just covering it up with pills or changing your diet and hoping you'll feel better one day. We feature solo episodes on helpful topics and interviews with guests who have actually walked in your shoes with autoimmune disorders and or who have years of experience in helping people to thrive and not just survive with autoimmune challenges. I'm a health coach who started this podcast because I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2018 and wanted to inspire hope and transform health for people with autoimmune challenges. So keep listening and let's get you the help and hope you really need. This is the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast. And for today's episode, I am really happy to welcome Sandie. Let's make sure I pronounced her last name correctly. Sandie Gascon, I think is how she says it. And if you have ever wondered how to actually overcome one autoimmune condition, maybe even multiple autoimmune conditions that you feel like are dragging you down, maybe you're even on disability or can't work, and how to get through those and actually break through and actually make a really good living working for yourself, or just even break through those money barriers and those health barriers, then you want to stay tuned to keep listening to this interview with Sandie. So Sandie, welcome to Autoimmune Rehab Podcast today. Why don't you start off by telling us in a nutshell, who are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I actually am an integrative healing practitioner. I'm the author of Heal Yourself and the founder of the Integrative Healing Academy. But I started where a lot of people listening started, being very, very sick. I was diagnosed with lupus in 2009 and had already been suffering from health issues my entire life. I started having migraines at age 7, insomnia, diagnosed with bipolar depression when I was 19. So being sick and not feeling good was really my life. It was normal for me. But it wasn't until the diagnosis of lupus that I really wasn't able to function. And I started trying to heal naturally. I started trying so many different diets and I wasn't getting success. And it wasn't until I realized that I had to start looking at root causes. I needed to start looking at the science behind healing, how to use supplements and herbs to help my body heal. And that led me to being able to get off the medication that I was on for the bipolar depression. I was able to get my antibodies down. And from there, I ended up getting certified and helping people all around the world. I developed my Heal Yourself program, went on to write my book, and then from there created the Integrative Healing Academy, where I'm now teaching people to become practitioners and start and scale their business.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. So let's backtrack here a little bit. And you said the what would you say is the very first thing that you did back when you were chronically sick that was kind of that turning point? Did you go hire a functional medicine doctor or a functional medicine coach? What was the very first thing that you did to get started?
The very first thing was it was a mindset shift. I went from being very much attached to my illness, being attached to the label of having lupus, talking about having lupus. It was who I became, and thinking that I was going to be like that forever. And it was actually a very instantaneous consciousness shift from something that I was listening to that made me realize I needed to become really dedicated and um, unstoppable in trying to heal myself. And that shift was key because when I was in that victim mentality and depressed and always thinking about the future, being sick, there was not going to be any healing there. And when I shifted my consciousness to no longer blaming my parents and society for making me sick and the stuff that they're putting in the food and my parents for not giving me a better diet, and moved into really empowering myself to change in the present and create a future that is what I wanted versus keeping on imagining what I didn't want and visualizing myself sick in the future. So I became really determined to figure out how to heal. And that shift, that focus is what was needed to start doing the research. Back then, we're talking, this was back in 2013. We didn't have access to as many tests. We didn't have as many online practitioners back then. It was a totally different story. Like I turned to those Yahoo forums and would sometimes wait days and days for responses and trying to find somebody who was going through it. And for me, it was getting off the effector that I was on and rebalancing my brain. That was my very first step healing, but there wasn't a lot of people doing it back then. Dr. Kalish had a book on balancing neurotransmitters. Lisa Ross also had a book, but we didn't know about genetics back then. It was all trial and error. So it took a lot of research, a lot of trial and error. And over time, I've really been able to shorten that process, because now we do have really, really amazing labs. People now have access to practitioners all over the world. It's not like you have to go see your naturopath and that's the only person that you've got. So we have access to better practitioners, and the genetics has really, really changed the way that we look at balancing the brain. So my first step was the mindset shift. The next step was to get off that medication and balance my brain. And when I did that, a lot of the symptoms that were called lupus actually disappeared.
Wow, that's interesting. So you were actually probably having side effects from the medication then that was causing
Huge,
some of
huge
that.
side effects. Yep, huge side
Wow.
effects. And the medication never really balances your brain. It kind of numbs you. And so you don't have
Mhm.
such big swings, but it's not fixing the problem. So once I went off the medication and then I had tools to balance my brain with supplements, it was like a whole new world. Like, well, I'll sing Aladdin for the rest of the day. Um, but that's really what it was. It was my whole life. I never had a balanced brain. Like my entire side of my mom's family has massive mental health issues. And so I didn't even know what it was to feel like that. And then all of a sudden to have that was very different in our brain, our neurotransmitter balance. It affects every aspect of our body.
Well, yeah, that's for sure true. Yeah. And I definitely tell people this all the time. And I hear a lot of guests that talk about it too, that part of the process of healing is, like you said, you have to detach yourself from that diagnosis and realize that just because you have it today doesn't mean that you're stuck with it forever and that it's always part of
Yeah.
your life. And
Yeah.
yeah, it absolutely, yeah. So the mindset shift is a big one. So when you were getting off those medications, did you find a naturopath to help you do that? Or how did you figure that
Nope.
all
I did
out
that
and
on my
get on the
own.
supplements and things?
Yep. Back then, there were really no naturopaths, besides, like, the only ones that I could find at the time was Dr. Kalish and Lisa Ross, and they weren't taking on clients. And definitely out of my budget. I was on disability. So it was figuring it out on my own, doing the trial and error. Doctors, pharmacists, they were not helpful. They were totally gaslighting me, saying it was all in my head. I needed to be on the medication for the rest of my life. And I just knew that wasn't for me, because I felt like a zombie. I had no emotions. And it got to a point where it stopped working. Like, for a while, it did help with my migraines. It really brought down the intensity, and it helped with the mood swings. It wasn't like so far to the left and right. I was just numb, but I didn't want to feel like that. And then when it stopped working, and I still couldn't stop taking it. I was still so addicted to that medication. My brain's receptors had changed that you can't just go off them. It took me over a year to get off that medication safely. And I definitely highly recommend that people do work with a practitioner like myself. I've helped so many clients go natural versus stay on the medication. And it's a lot easier, because I was so alone on the journey. Nobody understood what I was doing. Everybody thought I was insane. So now that they see me, oh, you've done all this healing, then they're like, oh yeah, sure, Sandie, what do I take for this? And oh, you're a practitioner and an author. But at the time, they thought I was insane and pretty crazy for trying to get off those meds.
Yeah, I bet for sure. Yeah. And we have come a long way in the last, like 10, 15 years-ish. It's like, I mean, I've actually even interviewed a few pharmacists and doctors on this podcast that have gotten into a
Yeah.
lot of the health coaching and the holistic and the healing and stuff. And
Yeah.
that just didn't really used to be that way. It used to
It
be,
wasn't. No, it's
yeah.
so such a different space. And that's why I ended up creating the academy, because we need more people really educated on how to help people heal. A lot of people go to practitioners and they tell them their symptoms, whether it's a natural practitioner or a regular doctor, and they're trying to treat the symptom, trying to turn it off. And my approach to healing is very different. We're looking at rebuilding the body. We're looking at rebalancing the systems. We're looking at repairing detox pathways. We want to work with the body. Don't want to work against it. We don't want to do all these crazy detoxes and try to kill a candida or try to kill that without just rebuilding the body, like just strengthen the body.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And it really shocks me how many people just don't even think about the whole concept of not just treating a symptom, but actually looking at the actual root cause of something. I know
Yeah,
people that have different kinds of illnesses, and when I even suggest to them that they should look at the root cause of what's causing their problem, they just think I'm nuts, And it's like, did I guess it's just, the whole concept of Western medicine is train people to think the whole pill for an ill thing that we just take these pills for these symptoms, and it hasn't really trained
yeah,
people to think or critically think and ask why, why do I have this symptom? And keep asking
100%.
why and why and why, but
Yeah,
that's not something that most of us are taught to ask. So it's, yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it is a whole different type of mindset. So let's talk then now about, so you figured out how to get off those medicines and you started taking those supplements, and do you make diet changes as well then as part of that?
Yeah, so I had tried a lot of fad diets, and my focus then was to just try to eat as clean as possible. And it really still is my focus with my program is not to cut things out. We want to clean things up. We want to get rid of the toxins. We want to go back to the foods we were eating 100 years ago. And now it's so much easier because we have so many different online places that are really giving good, like they're making really good products that taste really good. Like I've buy an einkorn pizza, which is made with einkorn wheat, the like traditional original wheat that has a very different gluten than what they've got in stores. And somebody bakes that and is a sourdough einkorn pizza, and it gets shipped right to my door. And it comes with the sauce, and I buy some nice pepperonis and cut up some green peppers. We have raw dairy shipped to our store, to our house from the farm. We have our meat comes from the farm. So back then I could not have eaten as clean as I do now, because when I lived in Canada, things are much harder to source, and things just weren't available like they are now. Like there's such a huge holistic movement to a traditional whole food diet that you can actually find these things so easily. And if you live in a place where you don't have any local farms, you can just have it shipped to your door.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's a lot more of the local farms opening themselves up for you to buy things. There's a lot
Yeah.
more of, I mean, even more of that stuff even available just in the grocery store, even too.
Yeah.
It's
Even in
like,
Publix, yeah,
yeah.
Publix has a lot of good options. In Canada, it really there's not as great options. It's definitely a struggle. I used to drive 6 hours to pick up my raw milk. I would buy 6 months of raw milk, and then I would drive 6 hours home, and that was our closest source for like many many years because of how it's kept under wraps in Canada. Like everything is so controlled. They'll allow you to put all sorts of chemicals and toxins and poisons into your body without any issue, but you want to get real food from the farm, they are going to make you jump through hoops.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, I definitely think I mean, we think we have a lot of regulations in the US, but I don't think we have anywhere near as many as people
No,
think
no, not
sometimes.
compared to Canada or the UK. Australia has a lot of regulations also. It can be really tough. Like I have clients in 27 countries, and we are really lucky and blessed in the United States with our access to supplements and our access to really good food.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. But at the end of the day, I mean, like you said, it just kind of boils down to just eat real food. Don't eat the stuff that your great great
Don't go to the
grandparents wouldn't
grocery store.
recognize it as food, then don't eat it because it's
Yeah,
not food.
yeah. If it can stay on the shelf for 5 years, don't eat it.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to
Right?
put it. Okay, so let's transition a little bit. I'm really curious. So you healed yourself and then you started probably, I'm assuming, teaching other people how to heal themselves. And then you eventually, somewhere along the way, founded the actual academy. So talk with us. How did that
Yeah.
evolve a little bit?
Yeah, well, and it was just when I started working as a practitioner, the program wasn't developed. It was very much still like more of an allopathic model where I was just treating symptoms. And over time, I started to realize that the people who were doing the rebuilding first were the ones getting success. The people who came to me with gut symptoms and just wanted gut protocols, they were not getting success. And so I started to have everybody do the rebuilding, no matter what their symptom was. We stopped focusing on the symptom, and my success rate started to go up and up and up, and then I had more people coming to me, and that's why I ended up writing my book. That was the first step, because in the book I try to outline as much as I can about the labs. In the appendix, I go over different lab analysis and what the lab values mean. I lay out my entire program in that book, and I'm like, yes, people can use this and they can start to figure out how to heal themselves with the book. And it didn't work like that. I wrote the book, and then I had more people wanting to come to me for coaching, and I was like, I cannot take on all of these people. It's just not possible. And so then I knew I needed to create the academy, and I literally took everything that's in my mind from the years of research and working with hundreds of people and thousands of labs. I've run so many labs over the years, and I put it into the course. And now, right as of the day that we're talking and recording this, I have 16 graduates who are out there practicing, taking on clients, and our number is just growing really consistently. We're almost at the 100 student mark, so it's amazing. Not only in the academy do we teach people to become practitioners, but in level 1, people can come into it and they don't have to go on to become practitioners. They can learn the material for themselves, their family. We give them access to wholesale labs, and we give them support with our live Zoom calls and our Facebook group, so that they basically become their own practitioner. They're not going to go on and become practitioners out in the world, but if we can make an impact with every family having these tools, knowing how to understand their labs and analyze the tests and design protocols, it's going to have a massive impact.
Yeah, that's a big one because, yeah, it's what you did with yourself. Honestly, you really are a unicorn in a lot of ways because most people cannot just do
Yeah,
what you do. They just are, I guess, whether they're not motivated enough. I don't know if I really want to say that, but people
yeah,
just a lot of times, even if they are motivated, they just lack the know-how. Maybe they don't know how to do the research skills, or for whatever
yeah,
reason, they're just not able to research and read a book and figure out what to do. And
exactly.
so, yeah,
Yeah,
that's really awesome. And hiring those practitioners is really expensive. And so,
yeah,
especially over the long haul, for some people, I would imagine it even saves them money just to go through your course and figure out how to heal
yeah.
themselves as opposed to hiring someone else.
Exactly. And that's why, we make level 1 super affordable. Anybody can get into the course and learn the material, have access to the wholesale labs, because it is expensive to hire a practitioner. And there are still tons of people out there who don't want to learn it and can go on and hire our practitioners, right? So we want to make it available to everybody.
That's cool. That's awesome. Okay, so the book is called Heal Yourself. And where does somebody find the book if they want to check out the book? And then tell us a little bit about where people would find the course, and we'll make sure we hit link to both of them in the notes below.
Yeah. So Heal Yourself is available on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. So you just type in Heal Yourself, Sandie Gascon, it's going to come up, or check the show links. And you can look at the course if you're interested in becoming your own practitioner or becoming a practitioner and helping others heal. You can go to www.integrativehealingacademy.com.
Cool. Awesome. That's great. So anything else you want to share with us? Maybe share with us, maybe if you could look back in time, maybe share with us one or two things that you kind of wish you had known back then that you know now. That would be
Yeah,
good.
the biggest one is get the labs. The labs are vital. And over the years, I have run so many different labs. The one I include in the Heal Yourself program, those are the ones that really get success. They're going to give us the most information. They're the most cost effective. And I wasted years of my life trying to figure it out with trial and error. I ended up developing interstitial cystitis because I was guessing on my symptoms and was taking things totally wrong for my body and took a million steps backwards. So don't do what I did, do what I'm doing now, because it
Yeah.
works so much better. You don't want to spend, 6, 7 years healing when you can do it in 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, that's good. I love that advice for sure. Absolutely. It's like you said, you hit the nail on the head. You were one in Canada and didn't have quite the resources that we have in the US. And then two, you were also, this was at a time where there really weren't the practitioners available that we have now. So yeah, take advantage of the fact that there are those resources out there to help you that you didn't have access to. Absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, the other thing is time. Like that's one thing people miss is they're conditioned to think that we can take a pill and get better. And so when they start to go the natural route, it's I can take some supplements and I'm on the supplement, so I must, just be better. But when you're doing the Heal Yourself program, you need to give your body time to start really tackling the backlog of issues that have been going on for years. It's not going to repair itself overnight or in a week or in a month. You have to be patient with the process. And it's not about taking supplements and getting an instantaneous relief of symptoms. It's about giving your body tools to heal. And that process is going to require time.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, absolutely. And I think honestly, that's one of the reasons that people sometimes end up reverting to the Western medicine and the pills is that some of those things in the short term, they might seem like they're carrying you a little more. I mean, I even think of things like, going through pain challenges and stuff like that. And sometimes the drugs for pain can give you a little more relief a little bit quicker than
Yep.
some of the natural stuff. But over the long term, you have to think about what damage is that causing to your body. So, yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, well, awesome, Sandy. Thank you for coming on Autoimmune Rehab Podcast. We will, like I said, share your links below. And if you are at all interested, make sure you go ahead and check them out. And we would love to hear your feedback. I'm sure Sandy's also got her website where you can get in touch with her, find out a little more about all the other stuff that she's got going on and that kind of stuff as well.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
No problem.